Hey, what's up guys, it's lividfray, hope you're all doing very well today. I've been getting a lot of comments on my videos as well as live streams asking for help with legendary missions, so I decided to reach out to some of the more experienced players that are in the game, and they are all within my Discord server, and I kind of talked to them and made a list of some recommended do's and don'ts during legendary missions, and these are all recommendations that they would make towards their randomly match-made teammates. If you haven't joined our Discord server yet, there will be a link in the description of this video, as well as the biography of my YouTube channel. Some of these tips are a little bit more advanced and they're not always going to apply to the situation. They're more of like a case-by-case basis, and you absolutely don't have to follow all of these tips every single time. This is just kind of our collective general tips and tricks for you guys who are struggling with legendary missions. And even if some of you guys are more experienced, and if you even learn one new thing in this video, I will have achieved my goal. If there is anything that I don't cover during the video, make sure to comment it down below for other agents that are watching and learning, but without further delay, let's get into some of the do's and don'ts during legendary missions. So to start things off, I have broken up each bit of our advice into categories, and the first category that I want to go over is communication, because I feel like it's one of the most important aspects when it comes to legendary missions. Communication in general is just going to make everything easier for everyone, even the most experienced players. Now, when I say communication, I don't necessarily mean using your microphone. Using a microphone obviously does help, but if you're like me, who's a bit of an introvert, I definitely don't like to use my mic at all. I really don't use my mic during legendary missions. The thing that I do utilize, though, a lot, is the text keyboard that is possible across all platforms. You can use this to inform your team of your build if it's not readily obvious. For example, if you're using a tactician support build with a heal and a pulse, you can inform your teammates, hey, I'm using a tactician support build, you guys can take your pulses off, because mine's probably stronger. You can also utilize this to just let them know what you're looking for. If you're looking for a very specific piece of classified gear or an exotic, just say, hey, I'm looking for this, odds are they're gonna drop that for you. Make sure to keep an eye on the chat for your teammate commands and disable any unnecessary channels such as the regional chat, and really all this does, it just clutters your feed with people trying to sell hacks. At least it does on PC. I can't really relate to console. I'm pretty sure the ones on console only let you do it for your group, which is honestly how it should be. It's also not a bad idea to just give your teammates a heads up saying, hey, I'm new to this, I've never done this mission before. This can save your teammates quite a bit of despair. They'll have an idea of who's new in the mission, who needs assistance more, and they may be able to give you advice on how to get to the next steps. One thing I will say about using this text channel is to be constructive in both giving and receiving criticism. If you're wanting to suggest to someone to change their build, their skills, or their tactics, try to do it in a kind, constructive way. There's no reason to be nasty to other people who are trying to do these missions. You guys are a team. Make sure to act like a team. The last remaining bit of advice that I have is just to kind of keep an eye on advice from people with higher commendation scores. This usually means that they're a lot more experienced in the game, especially people who have reached like 5k commendation. That's a lot of experience within the game. This isn't just, these aren't commendations that you can just blow past really easily or cheese. A lot of these are done through direct dedication to specific game activities. So if they have a really high commendation score, I would say anywhere between 4 or 5k plus, I would definitely listen to what these agents have to say. And the last little bit for communication that I have is to utilize the mark key to mark enemies that you would like to prioritize over others. When you use the mark key, it's basically going to put like a diamond shape on the NPC that you're marking. To do this on console, I think it's just holding up on the, or you press up on the D-pad to mark them, and then holding them will do a countdown timer from 5 seconds. And on PC, it's the Z as in zebra key. Will mark the enemy, and then hold down Z will do the countdown method. I like to use the countdown method to just put more attention on the NPC that I have prioritized, because not a lot of people will notice the mark at first. And the mark will show up in numbers in a group, and I believe it's 1 through 4 depending on the order of who joined the group maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but the group leader I believe is always number 1. And yeah, I would just say to utilize the mark key. It does kind of make things flow a little bit easier. If you mark the medics first, it's going to obviously show the teammates that you need to take the medic out as soon as possible. And then the assault leader is always next priority in my opinion, just because they buff the other NPCs, so I would always take them out next if you can. So that's pretty much the advice that we had collectively for communication. So next I'll move into team synergy. So when it comes to team synergy, a lot of this is going to come from just playing the game and then getting some experience under your belt, because a lot of it is kind of identifying gear on people. And again, communication is key in this portion as well, but knowing what build that each teammate is using by examining their gear and maybe even asking them, and eventually changing your gear accordingly to the scenario if needed. For example, if there's a lot of tactician builds on the team, or even one tactician player using seekers, it's probably not recommended to use a predator build. The reason for this is if they're already putting bleed on the targets, your bleed is ultimately not going to be doing anything. So I would just recommend take off predator if they have a tactician. Same thing goes for if you join the team and somebody is using a reclaimer. It's probably a good idea to take off your immunizer or life support box or whatever kind of support station that you're using. If you see that it's a reclaimer build, it's a pretty good idea to just take off your station and utilize a different skill such as the defib or the flashbang. If you do notice that your team is lacking a bit of DPS, try to put a DPS build on just to fill that gap for damage output. Also be sure to stick close to your teammates, so a manual revive or a defibrillator revive is possible if it's needed, but don't stick too close of them to the point where you are blocking each other's shots. Just cover their flanks and get into a good position, but not too far from each other, so you'll have that opportunity to revive if necessary. The most important thing that I could say about team synergy is this is not a solo venture, this is a team effort. So don't charge into encounters without the rest of the group. Let your team catch up, let them collect their med kits and everything that they need from the previous encounter. If you are wanting to push solo, play the legendary missions solo, is what I would have to say about that. But yeah, let your team set up for the encounter first before you just start it. A big example of this is in Warren Gate Power Plant. Don't pull all the valves at the same time. You guys need to set up and have one person pull each valve separately. And the last piece of advice that I would have for this is if you guys feel like you're getting pushed too hard, like if they're just at all angles and it's getting pretty difficult, fall back into previous rooms and let the NPCs funnel in one or two of them at a time. You'd be surprised at how easily you can clear these rooms just by doing this method. And as far as the signature skills, I've kind of separated them a little bit. So I have signature skills in one category, and then the recovery link and reviving is its own category. So I'll start off first with the signature skills portion. I would say to swap signature skills depending on your team synergy or the need. If there's already like 2 or 3 people using recovery link, I would just consider switching over to a tactical link instead. The security link should really only be used when the team needs to move from point A to point B and take reduced damage. The most common situation for this is in General Assembly when you exit the underground subway. You can use the security link to push from the staircase over to the button to activate the turrets, and then this way you'll take reduced damage from not only the NPCs but the turrets as well. And in general, you're going to be moving at an increased speed, so you'll get there a lot faster. The other common situation to use the security link is inside Falcon's Lost, which is an incursion, and that's something completely different for another day. So the tactical link should be used on bosses, hunters, or at the beginning of wave spawns, as long as everybody is in a good position to benefit from it. If you're using the tac link just for yourself, that's probably not a very good idea. I would also say to swap to a recovery link if everybody else's recovery link is on cooldown, or if there's only one person with an active one, I would say it's good to switch to recovery link as well. And finally, I would say to utilize a cool-headed pistol. This is going to obviously help you get your skill reductions a lot faster. I would definitely recommend always having cool-headed on a sidearm if possible. Since we've talked a little bit about the signature skills, I want to focus more on the recovery link because I'm also going to be talking about reviving in general. The recovery link should really only be used if there are multiple people down, or by a skill build that has high skill haste. If only one player is down, you should attempt a manual revive or use a defib before utilizing the recovery link. The main reason for this is just due to cooldown. Granted, if it's a skill build with high skill haste, since they're going to be getting their signature skill back pretty quick, it's not too big of a hassle for them to use it. One big thing is to not use the recovery link immediately when a teammate goes down. They're probably in a bad position to be revived. So if you use the recovery link for them and they go down immediately, it was basically wasted for no reason. The last thing that I wanted to bring up about reviving is to revive anybody who's down before eliminating the last enemy in the room. Main reason for that is due to preventing additional waves from spawning while players are down or not ready. Alright, now I want to get into more of the skills and talents, more specifically weapon talents and the ability talents in the ability screen. Utilizing the combat medic ability is going to increase healing to your teammates and their active skills. I actually can't really confirm with my own eyes that I've seen it work for skills like the turret, but I can confirm that it works for teammate shields, which is the most important thing that you need it for. So using a med kit not only gives your teammates that increased healing effect, but it also kicks in for their active shield. So that's why I would like to recommend to you guys to use Combat Medic when you're playing with a team. You can also utilize the Death by Proxy ability talent for increased skill power by destroying any NPC skills such as turrets, med stations, and seekers. Skill builds should also utilize the talented weapon talent for increased skill power, so using these together is going to increase your skill power that much more. Communicate with your team if you need help bringing down some HP on enemy skills, more specifically the turrets that the engineers will place. Those ones are pretty tanky, so if you need some help getting rid of those, make sure to communicate with your team using the text chat. Try to keep in mind if there are skill builds on your team using stickies so you can help them bring down the HP on those items, but I mean, don't make it a big priority. I would only do it if they are specifically asking for it, or if you notice that they're actively trying to destroy proxies. This can be a big help for them if you bring the HP down on those. A big way that you can help out your teammates that are utilizing a skill build is to try and do damage to the medic stations if we aren't able to eliminate the medics right away. If you put damage on the medic station, they will more than likely go and attempt to repair it. In this animation, the Sticky Bomb player can activate both Death by Proxy and Talented and Chain Reaction, pretty much all of their benefits on this one medic, because they are going to do increased damage to the blast radius, considering there are multiple targets within the radius for Chain Reaction. So that's one of the things that I would recommend is if we aren't able to eliminate the medic before the encounter starts, try to get their HP on their station down so they can go and attempt to repair it, and then the tactician build can usually handle it from there. Not only is the BFB Sticky Bomb reliable to use for tactician builds, if you are not a tactician build, the Blinder Sticky will be extremely beneficial, as well as the Defibrillator. Both of these skills will provide increased benefit even with low skill power. If you are using the Sticky Bomb, it doesn't really matter what type it is. You can utilize this on walls, ceilings, and floors. A direct hit is usually ideal, but a surface hit is still beneficial if the AI are abusing cover and you're unable to get them with a direct hit. And as I mentioned in the previous category, make sure to utilize cool-headed on either your pistol or your marksman rifles to get skills and ultimate skills back faster. A few of the don'ts that I have is do not use the Defibrillator skill if the player is already within the radius of a support station, especially a Reclaimer build. Save the Defibrillator for a different scenario. I mentioned these two earlier, but since we're talking about skills, I'll just go ahead and say them again. Don't use the support station if you already have a Reclaimer on your team, as well as the Pulse. If someone else already has a Pulse, there's really no reason for you to be running one. Odds are, if they are running one, they should have high enough skill haste, and if you guys aren't sure, make sure to communicate amongst each other to find out whose Pulse is stronger to prioritize. A few big ones that I have are don't use the weapon talents Intense or Harmful. Both of these can counter benefits from multiple different teammates' builds. And finally, as much as you guys would probably like to, try to avoid using Firecrest as much as possible, as well as the Airburst Seeker Mine. Both of these are a bit of a waste. Firecrest is useful in very specific missions and situations. A more experienced player could probably pull off using Firecrest no problem, but if this is the first build that you're bringing into a legendary mission, I really would not recommend this gear set in particular. It really just causes NPCs to flee and spread the area, and it's hard for the DPS players to keep track of them. Fire is really best used in very specific case-by-case scenarios. You can use the incendiary grenade to push enemies backwards, or you can use Firecrests, fire turrets in well-contained areas like some of the rooms in Warrengate, Grand Central Station, or Madison Field Hospital, but I would really only recommend these to like a really experienced player that knows how to play Firecrest well. If you guys really want to use Firecrest, I would just recommend using it in very enclosed areas. I could also do a separate video for good ways to utilize Firecrest in specific situations. So that all pretty much summarizes the categorized tips and tricks that I gathered with some experienced members in the community, and I'll just get into some general tips before we end the video. Along with the flashbang sticky bomb, using shock grenades to immobilize enemies or the tear gas grenade to slow them down is extremely beneficial. Also be sure to use your consumables effectively. This includes the soda for increased skill cooldowns. You can also use the energy bar to remove status effects, especially the disrupt effect from the hunters. And make sure to use water for increased damage to elites. This helps out a lot during the boss waves or, again, with the hunter waves. Don't be scared to use tactical explosions that are placed within the world, such as propane tanks and fire extinguishers, to remove NPCs from cover or to keep them stationary when they spawn in. You'll find this a lot with the fire extinguishers placed right next to doors that NPCs will spawn, and sometimes they'll be taking cover right next to a fire barrel that you can utilize to remove them from that cover. One tip that I actually got from somebody that I myself do quite a bit, but I didn't think to put in this video until he mentioned it, was to throw a grenade of any type in front or around the cover that the NPCs are abusing. It does not matter if the actual direct impact line is visible, as long as the grenade is in the as long as they are within the radius of the grenade, they will 9 times out of 10 roll out of that cover, even if they are protected from it, because obviously the NPCs aren't programmed that way. If they are within the radius, they're more than likely going to move, and it's even better if it's something like an incendiary grenade or a tear gas grenade. Sometimes even a frag grenade will stumble them out of that cover, so use those grenades to get them out if needed. And for the final tip that I have, I would say to learn to utilize the minimap. It helps decipher how close the enemies are approaching you, even behind walls and cover, and that's going to help you quickly learn where the actual spawn points for the enemies are, so you can get some better experience on how to do these missions. So with all that being said, that's going to be our general tips and tricks for legendary missions for newcomers. Hopefully you guys learned something in this video, and if you didn't learn something, you're probably an extremely experienced veteran player, and I salute you. If you have any additional information that you want to relay to these agents, make sure that you comment them down below, and I greatly appreciate you guys for watching. Let me know what you think of this video and if you want to see more of them in the future. I actually really enjoyed making it, and it allowed me to reach out to more experienced players within the Discord server, and I actually learned a couple things myself. So thank you guys to each and every one of you who participated in this. I greatly appreciate your guys' feedback and your input for the video, and I can't wait to work with you guys more in the future. I will talk to you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.